And welcome to Brainstorming America. I'm Ken Rollins and your co-host John Merrill. Welcome. Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you, Ken.
Welcome, but
good to see you, brother.
This show is syndicated. We try to get all the information out there to our public that's watching us right here. That we try to give you the in-depth of the stories that you might see going on in the country. And so I'm going to pop some at you that I made notes on here, John, if you don't mind. Even if you do mind.
That's never stopped you before.
Some of the hot news items. The one is your opinion on McConnell, Senator McConnell, the minority leader, has decided to step down at the end of his term. Now that's going to create a bloodbath. You like that word, bloodbath? Got Trump in trouble, didn't it?
That's right.
But anyhow, it's going to be a bloodbath in the Senate. Everybody fighting for his spot. I've already seen a couple. I wish that we may personally, Senator Hawley from Missouri would get that. I mean, he's such a astute person. But it's going to be right now the senators from Texas,
John Cornyn,
and
John Thune from South Dakota.
Thune, yeah.
Those two guys it'll be one of those two guys. There's no doubt about it. And one of the things that has to be understood is what that role is all about, because it's more than just a leader in a figurehead position. It's an individual who has to bring together the caucus to advance legislation, to stop legislation, to promote a narrative, to cause the narrative to cease if it's something that is hurting the party and hurting the caucus. And so both those guys have paid their dues. And I know there may be a couple other people who will indicate that they have interest, but those two guys will be the two that it'll come down to. They've been in leadership. They've worked with Senator McConnell. They understand what it takes, and one of those two will end up in that role. You know, it's interesting that it is those two states, because one of the most dynamic leaders in the history of the United States Senate was Lyndon Johnson, who became vice president and then became president of the United States. And that's where Senator Cornyn's from. And then Senator Thune, it's just amazing to me, Ken, that over the years, South Dakota has had such an influence on national politics with a state that's got 13 people in it. It's just phenomenal.
I thought they had 14.
Well, I think one of them passed last week. But I think it's important to know that even a smaller state, and they're not small geographically, but they are small population-wise, can have major influence. If you look back at Senator McGovern, George McGovern, who was in leadership and also the presidential nominee in 1972 for the Democratic Party. If you look at Senator Tom Daschle, who also ran for president, but was the leader a couple of different times for the Democratic Party. Senator Thune, as a Republican, is just the next step toward becoming a major leader from a small populated state.
Well, you know, we have to realize as Republicans and conservatives what it means to have the leader. And if you think about it, one of the greatest things that McConnell contributed just played out recently with a 9-0 victory. And he held on to that Merrick Garland appointment and to the Supreme Court. And Garland didn't get it, thank God. And that was McConnell's accomplishment right there.
Well, he's done enough damage as the Attorney General. I can't imagine what it would have been like if he had been one of the 9 justices of the Supreme Court with a lifetime appointment.
Yeah, that was Obama's man. And every time I see see what he's done to the teachers, just involving himself into, if you go before the school boards, you're criminalized. I mean, you go in and they brand you as a terrorist because you had asked questions of the school board. Well, that was dodging the bullet. But McConnell gets credit for that. He held it back. Another thing I noticed was we're still in this protesters up there. They're protesting as we see here today. But they was protesting in Berkeley because they had a speaker that was speaking from the IDF. He was Israeli, and he was speaking on what's happening. It bottoms up in that situation. These young people are supporting Hamas. They were worse than, in my opinion, worse than ISIS. I mean, we watched ISIS behead people.
Sure.
We watched the Hamas. They were as bad or worse than ISIS and some of what they did on October the 7th. And yet, these young folks, are taking the sides of the Hamas people over the Israelis, who are really just fighting back for what's been done to them.
Absolutely, and they have no life experiences, and they have absolutely no history in which to judge why they have the position they hold when they say that they support Hamas and they oppose the Israelis. And the thing that's the most disturbing is when you look at what happened and the attacks that occurred that have resulted in a number of deaths of people in Israel, as well as a number of deaths of the people that instigated the incident itself. But what you have actually seen is young people in the United States who don't have a clue as to what's going on try to stand up and step up and speak up about something they absolutely know nothing about, and have really put us in a defensive posture as a nation. Fortunately, members of Congress have not done so, and we know that you're going to be waiting there for us when we come back from this break to talk more on this week's episode of Brainstorming America.
Welcome back to Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins here with John Merrill. And John, we went to a break talking about the IDF and the protesting up there, but I want to jump to another subject. Since we were here, since our viewers last saw us, we've had the primaries with Donald Trump and Biden, and we kind of need to hit top on that because that is one of the biggest things going on as we sit in here today. Biden has got out of the basement and headed to west, out to California, out there trying to raise some money. And back here in America, the law enforcement, DOJ, seems to be trying to take everything that Trump's got, so he won't have enough money to. And I believe that's one of the things. If they can take his money through that situation in New York, that he won't have enough money to run. I don't believe American people are going to allow that. If they put $1 a piece, whatever, they're going to make sure that he has a fund. But there is an attempt, in my opinion, by the DOJ to ruin him financially. Are you watching? You know what I'm talking about?
There's no doubt about it, Ken. And what you have just shared is so very important for people that are watching our show today to remember. Because if they will do this to one of the most outstanding leaders in the history of our country, a man who was a president of the United States of America and one of the greatest entrepreneurs in the history of the Republic, then they can do the same thing to you. And that's what we've seen is selective prosecution. We've seen people that are in positions that are supposed to be objective when it comes to evaluating and assessing what crimes or criminal activity may have occurred, actually targeting a person and doing so in such a way to try to cripple him politically, personally, and professionally. And the American people are not going to stand for it, and that's one of the reasons why you're going to see an even bigger margin of victory occur November the 5th than people had anticipated.
Well, your background as a Secretary of State, you've had to prosecute people, didn't you?
Well, we did not have prosecutorial authority. We did a lot of investigative work, and then we turned that information over to local district attorneys or to the Attorney General's office.
But you know the law, and here's what I don't understand. How they brought him up on charges of stuff that's been for years, all of a sudden, you got to do it. It's very obvious that it had to do with his running for president.
Absolutely.
It was okay laying back there for all those years. And it was for nothing. Nobody was hurt. You know, there was no victim with the Donald Trump thing in New York. The banks, nobody. There is no victim. But yet, they will not allow him time to appeal. Now, that's something I've never heard of, where if something happens, I'm brought on trial, I get a chance to appeal it. They won't even let Donald Trump appeal that ruling of that crazy judge there in New York to keep from losing his property. It's so hell-bent to ruin that man. It's not about justice.
Well, that's their singular goal and mission. It is to make sure that they are restricting President Trump's ability to campaign. They're restricting President Trump's ability to raise money. They're restricting President Trump's ability to get his message out because he's in a defensive posture at all time. You clearly stated, Ken, the primary objective, which is for those prosecutors in New York to cripple, maim, and end the political career of Donald Trump so that he will not serve another term as your president.
We got to do, I got to do everything I can here to the viewership, the people out there that tell their cousins in Minnesota and the different people. Well, the people that are watching us have relatives across the country, and they are in discussion with those people. We got to make sure that people know the truth, that this is not about justice. This is not about a banker lost a bunch of money, a mortgage company lost a lot of money, some kind of investor lost the money. This is not what that's about.
Yeah, because no money was lost.
Yeah.
And the other thing that needs to be remembered is that the banks had to finance the projects. The housing people had to approve the facility as being one that could be sold. All the things that needed to be done from a regulatory perspective were all done correctly according to established law. But their singular goal and mission is to hurt Donald Trump.
Absolutely. It's every day you can see that, and I hope that the American people remember that in November, that what this was about. This was not about, this is to taking all of his money. They're trying to take Trump Tower, everything he owns, including Mar-a-Lago where he lives. I mean, that was this morning I was listening to that they hope to, that Latricia, whatever her name is up there in New York, she hopes to be able to get things that are not in New York, property that's not in New York, meaning Mar-a-Lago. She has said that take the man's home, his place where he lives.
Well, look, Ken, first and foremost, she should have been removed from the position as Attorney
Absolutely.
General, because when she was running, she publicly stated that her
Absolutely.
singular goal was to make sure that Donald Trump was prosecuted and to make sure that Donald Trump was not going to be able to serve another term as the President of the United States. Who says that? That is a major problem.
Yeah.
When we have people that are running with political agendas who have a sole purpose of eliminating an individual or harming an individual personally, politically, or professionally, then that calls for prosecutors at the federal level to step up and to make sure that that stops. We hope that that won't cause you to stop watching this segment of Brainstorming America. We're going to be right back for our final segment of our 53rd episode right after this break.
Welcome back to Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins here with John Merrill. And John, when we went to break, we were talking about the Trump situation. But they had an FBI agent that had been testifying all these years, and he's one that had a bunch of information on Joe Biden and these foreign countries. And he's found to be lying in one part of that. So therefore, if you lie in any part of it, it makes you a liar for all of it. But with that said, that informant has been, he's being charged. But that said, there's still, I was listening this morning at some of the hearings on the Biden situation. There's a guy testifying, as I was coming into the station today about Biden's agreements with some of the partners, Hunter's partners, to get money from these foreign countries. And the brand is Biden, Joe Biden. The brother is Jim Biden. They were all involved. It went over this morning again, some stuff that I was not aware of. And they're having hearings as we sit here in D.C. today about that. But I don't want the public out there to think just because they had that one informant that had turned over as a liar about one item, that stuff with Joe Biden and the foreign country. We saw it with our own eyes when he hustled a guy over there, said, if you're not removed such and such by the end of the day, I'm going, you're not getting that $millions. That's they were trying Donald Trump for the same thing.
Right.
But they were trying him for words, and here we was watching this president, vice president at the time, telling a foreign leader, if you don't fire, just imagine somebody coming here telling Biden, if you don't fire the AG, the Attorney General, we're not going to give any aid. We're not giving you any money. But that's what he did. And that's tit for tat. That's what they call that.
Quid pro quo.
That's it.
Yes, sir.
And that's what they were trying to charge Trump with. And they didn't have any. And we got all you can look at for your Joe Biden.
Absolutely.
And he's if you wonder why we have all these, me personally, I wonder why we're so soft with China and some of these other people. We don't do the things that we used to do back in the Reagan days to get them off. We sit there and watch these Iranians tap off one ship at a time and don't do anything. There's no retribution. Those days are not there, but we watch that happen in real time and wonder why. Does somebody have something on it when you don't?
Well, it does concern you, and it makes you wonder about that, and it also makes you wonder about the overall security of the nation and whether or not we're as safe as we should be.
Thank you.
Based on the things that we know about what has occurred under his leadership as vice president and now as president of the United States.
When he don't hit back after we've been hit and we've lost servicemen. When he don't hit back, and I don't mean now he's hitting back by dropping BBs out there on them and stuff, when he should be destroying them, in my opinion. That those people from Yemen, or what do they call them, Houthis,
right?
Those are just proxies of Iranians. They probably didn't even have nothing but a stick before they started that stuff, and they're out of the southern African area. They don't have anything. All they got is what Iran's give them.
That's right.
And so my thing is go down there and just a little bit more south and talk to Iran. And I mean, talk to them loud. But wouldn't do for me to be in charge of that, would it?
No doubt.
You'd be getting your boots on.
That's right.
All right. Let's see what I got here. We're waiting on, we was talking about Trump. They got an immunity case before the Supreme Court. And if that is, what he's saying, I want to explain to the folks out there, that he shouldn't be charged in any of that stuff because he was doing it in his office of the President of the United States, that he was immune from prosecution for anything, and it has to do with that old January 6th stuff. And if that comes back in Trump's favor, then all that stuff with Jack Smith, they're thrown out the case. But they've made that a lot bigger deal. And I see stuff last night that CNN had even had some of it, where the January 6th, when I was watching that, I was watching the police ushering people in. And then if you look at them going through the Capitol, it was like they were on a tour. Did you see the film I'm talking
Yes,
about?
sir. Yes, sir.
And how
they
did
were organized, they were structured, they were staying within the station lines as they were moving from chamber to chamber, as they were moving across the rotunda. It clearly was an organized movement. It was not a chaotic movement, which you would have people going wherever they wanted to, cutting pictures down, painting on the statues and the monuments, and none of that occurred.
Well, where's the weapons? You don't have an insurrection without weapons. I mean,
That's
it's
correct.
just, that's like going out to Australia and throwing boomerangs, but you don't have boomerangs. You got, I mean, these people, to have an insurrection, they were caught up in the excitement of being allowed into the Capitol. They were allowed in by the White House police. They were allowed in, and I watched some of them. They'd go over and juggle a door, and the police said, "Try this one." I saw that in my own eyes. The police is supposed to be fighting them off, keep them out because it's an insurrection, is saying, "Try that door there."
Right.
That one's locked, try that one. Pointing to it. And they did. They tried it. And the door was open. And they went on in. Guided by the Capitol Police.
Right.
I just, and to turn around and people put those people behind bars, it's just so wrong. They were tourists caught up in a situation.
Well, what we don't know is we don't know if that story will ever formally be told. But we do know that the story of the 53rd episode of Brainstorming America has been told today. We're delighted that you joined us again. We hope you'll be back with us again next week. Thank you so much for your time and your interest.